The boy's scream tore through the thick, humid air, swallowed almost instantly by the violent churn of the river. His arms flailed wildly, barely breaking the surface before the current pulled him under again. On the muddy bank, Nathan Cole, a man in his late 30s with sunburned skin and a wiry build, sprinted forward, boots sliding dangerously close to the edge. His pulse thundered in his ears, faster than the rushing water itself. Just as he prepared to leap, a flicker of movement in the tall grass caught his eye. Emerging from the thicket, low to the ground and alert, came a lioness cub, her golden coat flashing beneath the fading light. She froze, her eyes locked not on Nathan, but on the boy drowning below. Nathan's chest tightened. He had seen lions before on the outskirts of the reserve, but never this close and never alone. The cub crept forward, paws sinking into the soaked soil, ears flattened against the roar of the river. A low rumble vibrated in her chest, a sound too deep for such a young creature, yet sharp with urgency. Nathan's instincts screamed at him to act, but his legs locked as he watched the cub's gaze track the boy's frantic struggle. For one unbearable heartbeat, man and animal both hovered at the edge, neither moving, the boy vanishing once more under the foaming surface. The splash came sudden and sharp. The cub leapt. Water exploded outward as her small body knifed into the river with shocking force. Nathan gasped, scrambling down the bank, mud clinging to his jeans, his hands tearing through reeds for balance. His mind screamed at the impossibility, a wild cub plunging willingly into water that could sweep away a grown man. The river's roar swallowed everything else, the hiss of the current, the muffled gasps of the boy, the thrashing ripples where the cub had disappeared. For a moment, there was only chaos. Then, a flash of tawny fur broke the surface, jaws clamped on the boy's shirt. Nathan staggered into the water up to his knees, arms extended. The cub fought the current with every ounce of her strength, her body small against the raging river yet refusing to let go. The boy coughed, choking, as his head lifted briefly above the surface. Nathan lunged forward, boots slipping on slick stones, fingers clawing through icy spray. "Hold on!" he shouted, though neither cub nor boy could hear him through the roar. In a surge of desperation, the cub angled toward Nathan's outstretched arms, dragging the child with her. The sight stole Nathan's breath. It was not chance. It was choice. Their worlds collided in one desperate pull. Nathan grabbed the boy's limp arms just as the cub shoved him forward with her muzzle. The river slammed Nathan sideways, water blasting into his face, but he anchored his feet and yanked upward. With a guttural cry, he hauled the child onto the bank, collapsing beside him. The boy coughed violently, spewing water, chest heaving with raw, painful breaths. Nathan clutched him tight, relief flooding his body like a breaking dam. But before he could even thank fate for the miracle, he realized something was missing the cub. His head snapped toward the river. Foam surged past, debris spinning in deadly spirals. No golden fur, no piercing amber eyes. His heart lurched into his throat as he scanned frantically along the current. The boy moaned softly, weak but alive in his arms, yet Nathan's eyes remained fixed on the river. A wild creature had saved his child, and now it was being swallowed whole by the same merciless force. The thought tore at him, raw and unbearable. "No," he whispered, as if the river could hear. "Not her." Then movement. Downstream, caught between two jagged rocks, the cub surfaced, gasping and clawing at the slick stone. Her tiny body shook with exhaustion, paws scraping helplessly. She let out a sound, not quite a roar, not quite a cry, something piercingly fragile that knifed through Nathan's chest. Without a second thought, he laid the boy gently on the ground and surged to his feet, heart hammering. The cub had given everything to save the child. Now, if he hesitated, she would vanish beneath the torrent for good. Nathan slid down the bank, knees slamming into the mud, palms raw against the jagged rocks. The current pulled at his legs as he edged closer, every step threatening to sweep him under. His breath came in short, panicked bursts. The cub's head bobbed, her claws slipping again and again, her body inches from being wrenched free into the dark rush beyond. Nathan stretched one arm forward, fingers trembling, the roar of the water nearly drowning his own voice. "Come on. Hold on!" he shouted, though he knew she couldn't understand. Still, her golden eyes locked onto his, and in that instant, something passed between them. The river surged, louder, angrier, as if sensing his attempt. The cub's paw slipped fully this time, her body jerking downward in a violent tug. Nathan lunged, water hammering his chest, his fingertips brushing fur for the briefest second before the current ripped her from the rock's grip. A blur of gold and spray vanished in a flash downstream. Nathan shouted her name, though she had none, his voice raw and desperate. His heart pounded with a sickening truth. He had saved his son, but he was about to watch the savior of his child disappear forever. Nathan's legs pounded against the current as he tore downstream, eyes locked on the small golden body tossed between waves. His lungs burned with every breath, but the sound of the cub's strangled cries over the river's roar drove him harder. The boy lay on the muddy bank behind him, fragile but breathing. Now Nathan's focus was consumed by this fragile life fighting the torrent alone. The river was faster here, foaming white against jagged boulders, spraying mist into the air like cold needles. The cub's head vanished under for a heartbeat, then surfaced again, weaker this time, her movements slowing. Panic clawed through Nathan's chest. He had seconds, maybe less. The ground gave way suddenly, and Nathan slipped, his body crashing onto wet stone. Pain ripped through his elbow, but he forced himself up, blood mixing with the spray on his skin. Ahead, the cub was slammed against a branch wedged between two rocks, clinging desperately with claws that barely found purchase. She let out a guttural sound, half snarl, half plea. Nathan's heart clenched. She wasn't fighting for herself alone anymore. It was as if she was calling to him, demanding he not give up. His boots found no traction, so he dropped to his knees and crawled forward, water battering his sides, muscles screaming with strain. Then the branch shifted. The cub's body jolted as the makeshift anchor snapped free, the current seizing her again with brutal force. Nathan lunged without thinking, diving chest-deep into the rushing water. His arms flailed, fighting the weight of the river as it threatened to crush him against hidden rocks. The cold cut into his bones like knives, but he drove forward, his fingers stretching toward a flash of gold tumbling through foam. For an instant he caught her tail, slick and thrashing. His grip slipped. The cub's cry tore through him as she spun out of reach once more. Nathan cursed aloud, teeth bared against the river's fury, and pushed deeper still. He finally caught her one desperate snatch, his hand locking onto her scruff just before she vanished into another rapid. Her body was trembling, drenched, heavier than he expected for something so small. She squirmed weakly, not fighting him, not biting, only clinging to him with what little strength remained. Nathan pulled her to his chest, tucking her under one arm while his free hand fought to cling to the rocks. The current ripped at both of them, threatening to wrench them back into the chaos. His boots slipped once, twice, then finally found purchase in a crevice. With a guttural roar that matched the river's fury, Nathan hauled them both upward, his legs straining until at last they collapsed onto the slick bank, coughing and gasping side by side. For a moment, the world slowed. Nathan lay sprawled in the mud, the cub's tiny chest heaving against his arm. She blinked, water streaming from her whiskers, her breaths shallow but steady. Up close, her fur was softer than he imagined, though soaked and clumped together, her body trembling violently. Nathan brushed a hand over her back, half to comfort her, half to reassure himself that she was alive. The cub didn't snap or recoil. Instead, her amber eyes lifted to his, unblinking, as though studying the man who had risked everything to pull her free. That gaze pierced deeper than any roar, and for the first time Nathan felt something shift, an unspoken recognition, fragile yet undeniable. But the forest around them did not allow peace for long. A sharp crack echoed from the trees above, like a branch snapping under heavy weight. Nathan froze, the cub stiffening in his arms. The boy lay just upriver, alone, defenseless. His breath quickened as he scanned the shadows, ears straining past the river's noise. Another sound came, low, guttural, and unmistakable. A lion's growl, deeper, older, rolling like distant thunder. The cub's body tensed, ears flat, a small whimper escaping her throat. Nathan's heart pounded. This wasn't just any animal, it was her kin. And if the mother was near, the sight of a man holding her cub could ignite a deadly storm. He rose slowly, every muscle coiled tight, the cub still pressed against him. His eyes darted toward the boy, motionless on the bank, then to the shifting shadows in the undergrowth. Branches rustled. Leaves shivered, though no wind blew. The growl came again, closer now, carrying the weight of warning. Nathan's pulse raced, torn between two impossible choices: protect the cub in his arms, or rush to shield his son before the forest itself erupted. His throat tightened, torn between instincts as primal as the world around him. The cub pressed her head weakly against his chest, as though she too sensed the danger building all around. The undergrowth parted. For a breathless second, Nathan saw nothing, just darkness between the leaves. Then two eyes glowed, molten and fierce, locking straight onto him. The massive form of a lioness emerged, her shoulders rolling with power, her muzzle lifted to scent the air. Her gaze shifted from Nathan's face to the cub in his arms, and the air itself seemed to tremble with tension. The cub gave a soft, plaintive sound, fragile against the roar building in her mother's chest. Nathan's knees threatened to buckle as the realization crashed over him. He had saved the cub from the river, only to deliver himself into the jaws of her protector. The lioness stepped fully into the clearing, her muscles rippling beneath her tawny coat, each movement deliberate and terrifyingly calm. Her head lowered, golden eyes narrowing on Nathan, then flicking to the cub cradled in his arms. A low rumble rolled from her chest, vibrating the earth beneath his boots. Nathan's breath hitched, sweat cutting rivers down his mud-smeared face. Behind him, the boy gave a faint groan, still too weak to move. One wrong step, one twitch in the wrong direction, and the predator before him would explode into violence. His body trembled, but his arms instinctively tightened around the small cub, shielding her even from her own mother. The cub stirred, releasing a soft sound that cut through the growl like a thread of light through shadow. She wriggled against Nathan's chest, not to escape him, but to lean forward, ears perked, eyes wide on the lioness. The mother's snarl softened by the faintest degree, her gaze flicking once more between the man and the trembling cub. Nathan felt the air shift. This was no wild charge, no immediate strike. This was judgment, as though the great cat was weighing the truth of what she saw. Still, the tension was unbearable, a knife held against the thin line of his throat. The forest seemed to hold its breath, every insect and bird silenced by the looming standoff. Nathan raised his hands slowly, palms open, every motion exaggerated so as not to provoke. His voice cracked when he whispered, "Easy, she's safe." The lioness's ears twitched, her eyes narrowing, but she did not lunge. Instead, she lowered her head even further, muscles coiled like springs. The cub gave another plaintive cry, tiny compared to the thunder of her mother's chest, and pressed her forehead weakly against Nathan's arm. The gesture froze him in place. It wasn't just contact, it was trust, fragile and unexplainable. And the lioness saw it. Her tail lashed once, striking the ground with a whip-like snap, a warning that the balance could tip at any second. Then came a sound that cut deeper than any growl. The boy coughed, loudly, painfully, his body twisting on the mud. Nathan's heart seized. The lioness's gaze snapped toward the child, her nostrils flaring as she drew in his scent. For the first time, Nathan saw something shift in her expression, not aggression, but recognition. Predators knew weakness, yes, but they also knew innocence. The cub squirmed harder now, trying to reach the ground, her gaze locked on her mother. Nathan's grip loosened, torn between fear and a wild intuition that she needed to go. With trembling fingers, he set her gently onto the soil. The cub staggered at first, legs wobbly, before padding unsteadily toward the towering figure of her mother. The lioness's body tensed as the cub approached, ears flattened, breath heaving. Nathan braced for an explosion, ready to shield the boy with his own body if she turned on them. But then the cub pressed her soaked fur against her mother's chest, nuzzling weakly, letting out a broken mewl. The lioness froze, eyes flicking back to Nathan as though replaying the scene she hadn't witnessed, the rescue, the struggle, the choice. Her massive head lowered until she touched the cub's crown, a soft chuff escaping her muzzle. Nathan's knees nearly gave out with relief. Yet even as he exhaled, danger was far from gone, because the forest had been watching. From the ridge above, another shadow shifted, and this time it was no lion. A hyena slunk from the underbrush, its laugh-like call scraping the air. Then another emerged, and another, circling in a crescent around the weakened group. Their eyes glowed with hunger, drawn by the scent of wet fur, blood, and vulnerability. Nathan's gut clenched as he realized the river had not been the end of their trials, it had only led them into another battlefield. The lioness swung her head toward the intruders, lips peeling back to reveal teeth that glistened like knives. The cub whimpered, pressing closer to her mother's chest. Nathan's arms moved on instinct, spreading protectively in front of his son. The lioness mirrored his posture, her body lowering, a snarl ripping free as the hyenas advanced in cruel confidence. For one surreal heartbeat, man and beast stood united, not by choice, but by necessity. Nathan felt the earth vibrate under his boots as the hyenas crept closer, their laughter rising into a chilling chorus that echoed through the trees. His pulse hammered so loudly it drowned every other sound. The cub leaned against her mother's paw, eyes wide and trusting, while the boy's faint whisper reached Nathan's ear. "Dad." "Don't let go," the hyenas lunged. The clearing erupted with chaos, snapping jaws, the thunder of paws against mud. Nathan grabbed a broken branch, swinging wildly, while the lioness launched forward in an explosion of fury, her roar splitting the forest in two. Teeth clashed inches from Nathan's arm as he shoved one predator back, adrenaline drowning his fear. The boy screamed, clutching the earth with pale fingers. The cub cowered beneath her mother's legs, trembling but alive, her eyes glued to the man who refused to run. In that chaos, Nathan understood. Survival was no longer just about his son, nor the cub. It was about all of them, bound together in a single fight. The clash was a blur of teeth and claws. The lioness hurled herself into the pack with terrifying grace, jaws snapping down on the first hyena's neck, her roar so deep it rattled Nathan's bones. Mud flew as she twisted, flinging the predator aside like ragdoll. Another hyena darted past her flank, heading straight toward Nathan and the boy. Instinct drowned his fear. Nathan swung the branch with both hands, the crack of wood against skull sending the creature sprawling. His palms burned, his chest heaved, but adrenaline surged like fire through his veins. The boy clung to his leg, trembling yet alive. Behind him, the cub pressed into the mud, eyes wide, her tiny body quaking at every sound. A hyena lunged again, jaws snapping inches from Nathan's face. He shoved back, but his boots slipped in the muck, his body pitching sideways. Time slowed. The animal's hot breath burned his cheek, its teeth gnashed for his throat. Then a blur of gold slammed into it. The lioness struck with bone-cracking force, her growl exploding like thunder, scattering the pack. Nathan rolled onto his side, gasping, and their eyes met man and predator, both fighting for more than themselves. There was no question anymore. This was not rivalry. This was survival, and for this moment, they were bound as one. The hyenas regrouped, circling with cruel persistence, their laughter chilling in its mockery. Nathan's branch splintered in his grip, his strength ebbing, but he refused to step back. The lioness bled from a gash along her shoulder, yet her stance never faltered. Her cub whimpered, pressed low into the mud, but then let out the faintest snarl, as if trying to echo her mother's defiance. Nathan's son squeezed his leg, whispering, "Don't stop, Dad." That fragile voice lit a fire in him. He squared his shoulders, ready for the next wave, even if it would tear him apart. The hyenas charged as one. Nathan screamed, swinging his broken branch, while the lioness barreled forward with primal fury. Teeth snapped, claws tore, bodies crashed together in a maelstrom of sound and motion. Nathan felt jaws clamp onto his sleeve, tearing cloth and flesh, but he ripped free with a howl. The lioness reared, slamming a predator to the earth, her roar so violent it silenced the forest. The cub darted forward a few steps, giving a trembling cry, her eyes locked not on the hyenas but on Nathan. That sound, fragile yet piercing, drove him to push harder, his arms swinging until at last the laughter faltered. One by one, the hyenas backed away, tails tucked, their hunger no match for the storm they had awoken. The pack melted into the shadows, their retreating cackles fading into the trees. Silence fell, broken only by the ragged breaths of man and beast. Nathan dropped to his knees, chest heaving, sweat and blood mixing with mud on his skin. His son stumbled forward, arms wrapping weakly around his waist, sobbing into his chest. Nathan clutched him tight, whispering broken words of comfort. Just beyond, the lioness stood tall, sides heaving, her amber eyes burning in the dim light. She looked at Nathan not as prey, not as rival, but as something else entirely. Her cub limped to her side, then turned, gazing once more at the man who had pulled her from the jaws of the river. Slowly, the lioness stepped closer. Nathan froze, every instinct screaming to hold still, but he did not back away. The massive cat lowered her head until her muzzle hovered just above his shoulder. He felt her hot breath against his skin, each exhale heavy with the scent of blood and earth. For a heartbeat that stretched into eternity, predator and man shared the same space, bound by the invisible thread of survival. Then she turned, brushing her cheek against his arm in a fleeting, deliberate gesture, an acknowledgement so profound it stole his breath. The cub mirrored her, nudging her tiny head against his hand before retreating beneath her mother's legs. Nathan's eyes stung with tears he hadn't realized he was holding back. The lioness gave a final rumble, softer now, and guided her cub into the thicket. Their golden forms disappeared into the forest, leaving only paw prints pressed into the mud beside his boots. Nathan held his son close, staring after them, his chest swelling with awe and gratitude. He knew he would never see them again, not like this. Yet the bond forged here, carved in blood, water, and trust, would remain etched forever in his memory. A wild cub had saved a boy's life, and in return, Nathan had been given something he never expected: respect from the wild itself. The river still thundered nearby, the forest still whispered with unseen life, but the clearing felt sacred now, marked by what had unfolded. Nathan rose, cradling his son against his chest, and turned toward the path home. Behind him, the last traces of paw prints slowly filled with rainwater, vanishing into the earth. He glanced back once more, heart heavy yet full. The cub's eyes, wide and luminous, still lingered in his mind, along with her final touch. It was more than survival. It was connection, unspoken yet undeniable, a promise between man and beast that the wild, for one night, had chosen not to divide them.